From Lagos, Nigeria, this is Tonight on News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. Nigerian Senate passes vote of confidence in Senator Godswill Akpabio, reaffirms support for his leadership. Nigeria's House of Representatives rejects VAT increase, approves tax reform bills. Russian President Vladimir Putin expresses concerns about 30-day ceasefire proposal in Ukraine war.
In business, Nigeria's finance minister announces federal government's plan to cut borrowing and boost private investments.
And in sport, heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk handed a 30-day ultimatum to negotiate title defense against Joseph Parker.
Tonight begins now. Thank you for joining us. The Nigerian Senate has again passed a vote of confidence on its president, Godswill Akpabio, despite sexual harassment allegations leveled against him by suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. News Center's National Assembly correspondent, Sagi Ibrahim, brings details of this and more from Thursday's plenary.
Senate Majority Leader Okoyemi Bamidele raised a motion citing Orders 41 and 51 of the Senate Rule Book following Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's recent appeal at the Inter-Parliamentary Union meeting in New York. Bamidele stressed the need to clear the air on the allegations of sexual harassment against the President of the Senate, which he says is distracting the upper chamber from his constitutional mandate.
We need to concentrate. There is work to be done, and we need to concentrate on our mandate, regardless of what anybody might say, Mr. President. We do not only stand united around our mandate, but that we also communicate this clearly to members of the Nigerian public, by moving a vote of confidence in the Senator Godswill Akpabio leadership of this Senate.
In response, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, thanked his colleagues for their unwavering support, urging them to continue contributing their quota to nation building.
We have so confidence in our female folk. In this 10th Assembly of the Senate, we have only 4 women, and the 4 of them are all committee chairmen, intentionally, in order to give a voice to women in the parliament. So I thank you for this vote of confidence. I will not take it for granted. And I also have confidence in you and your ability to continue to contribute your quota towards nation building.
Meanwhile, a bill seeking to amend the Electoral Act to provide for early voting during elections scaled second reading on the floor of plenary. Sponsor of the bill, Katsina Central Senator Abdulaziz Eradua, while presenting the general principles of the bill, said it seeks to enfranchise Nigerians who, due to their duties on election day, are often denied the opportunity to vote.
Over 1 million citizens who play critical roles in ensuring the smooth conduct of the elections are disenfranchised. These include INEC officials, ad hoc staff, the security personnel.
Other lawmakers expressed mixed views on the bill.
We must support this. Again, we said Nigeria is a giant of Africa. Giant in what perspective? We are a giant in the economy and all that. We should also be giant in democratic process.
Enshrining this early voting, people can vote very early, and those that wish to wait for the last date for them to cast their vote physical, that is also okay.
They are not totally disenfranchised. They are carrying out another essential service that adds to the value of the electoral process.
When the bill was put to a voice vote, the ayes had it, and the bill passed its second reading. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Sagi Ibrahim.
Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, has attributed the proliferation of universities to mounting pressures from lawmakers Al also spoke at the third edition of the 2025 ministerial press briefing in Abuja on Thursday, at a time the federal government has come under increasing pressure to reform the country's education sector. With nearly 200 bills pending in the National Assembly for the creation of new universities, the minister emphasized that strengthening the capacity of existing institutions is more important than establishing new ones. He also noted that there was no need to pressure the president into approving more universities.
We're working with the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry on how we're going to do this. We're trying to plan the process on how this will be done. We've gotten the NIPSI to join us as well, so that we can now have a register that is clean, and as these funds go to these parents, we know exactly we're paying the right people. So we have a clear plan to address out-of-school children. We also have launched a Lumina program for a girl child education. That was launched just last week.
Joining me now to discuss this is Professor Anthony Killer, Director and Professor of Strategy and Development at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Thank you for giving us your time tonight. 200 bills pending before the Assembly. The advice is clear: stop proliferation and improve quality. Do you agree with the ministers? And can the Assembly stop action on those bills?
Well, I think it must be said that I understand the minister's view, but there is a bit of oversimplification going on in this matter, and it is important that we have a rather more complete and holistic view of the situation in education. So there are two things. We have a qualitative deficiency and a quantitative deficiency. The quantitative deficiency is due to the fact that there are lots of Nigerian students who would like to go to university, and there are not enough universities for them. This lack of enough spaces leads to certain arbitrary practices and indeed substandard in a way. But there's also a qualitative problem in the sense that the existing universities are not up to par. They're not up to par in terms of infrastructures, in terms of what they deliver to the student, and really, and we must talk about it, in terms of what they deliver to the society. I think if we want to look at the tertiary education sector, perhaps the whole education sector, we need to think of a reset. We need to, for example, think of better living standards for students and better wages and recognition for faculty. But by the same token, we need to expect the faculty to solve Nigerian problems. We need to expect engineers and mathematicians and our faculty of agriculture to solve the problem of our daily life. There's no reason why we should not be known as a country that is dealing with malaria by providing vaccines, not dosage of medicine. So that's the problem on the other side. In terms of dealing with it, I think the minister errs when he thinks that the government is the center of everything. No, the government can focus on making sure that government universities are improved and up to par, but then set up standards for private universities who want to come into the system. It is important to set them good framework within which they have to operate, so that way the private sector can complement the public sector.
But Killer, he is not saying, I don't believe that institutions are bad, creating new ones are bad. He's just saying that we have institutions already, and some of them are performing way below standards. Instead of creating more universities, the ones that we have should be strengthened. And that argument, I would expect one in the academia to see some, quality in it.
Well, there is quality in it. What I do not agree with the simplification. Someone in academia will not oversimplify. The situation is more complex than Dr. Lausa is making it. Look, Dr. Lausa needs to focus on the public sector. And by the way, he doesn't need to say it. He needs to go to the universities, call the vice chancellor and say, this is what we're doing to improve the universities. I can say it is bad. He should be improving it, not talking about it. That's on one side, because he's the minister. He's charged and paid to do that. On the other side, what I'm saying is that we need to find a way to use the private sector to complement the public sector. And the way to do it is to give them a good framework within which they work. But I talk generally because there is known as a general notion in the country of people saying that they should stop new universities and improve the existing one. I think that is the wrong view. One does not stop the other. It is important to improve the existing one and tell the new ones coming that they must come at a high standard. Also because people have the right to aspire to own universities.
Yeah, but there's
right
something else he said I'd like your thoughts on, Prof. He said on special universities, he urged institutions to stick to their core mandate. He believes there is a need to reduce the number of non-technical courses in specialized universities and instead offer them in conventional institutions. I really cannot perceive where you would be on this argument.
No, my point is very clear. I think it's oversimplified. The reason why specialized universities go general is mainly because they're more generous students than specialized students. If we want specialized studies, if we want to improve science and technology, my thinking is that we need to start from secondary school to make science sexier, to make technology more attractive, and to show that that is the future. But that is difficult because at the moment, starting from secondary school, and indeed some universities, especially in the rural part of Nigeria, and I think most of northern Nigeria, most of the universities are ill-equipped. So they really cannot attract high achievers in science and technology. I think it's an infrastructural problem. So if you set up a university of agriculture, for example, or technology, and they do not have the equipment of doing technology or agriculture, they end up trying to attract students for general studies. That is the problem we have. So okay. I get the dilemma the minister in, but I challenge his approach. I think he's oversimplifying issues.
All right, let's just go away a bit from the creation of universities and all of that and talk about his reaffirmation that the federal government is committed to reducing the number of out-of-school children and perhaps create better pathways to access tertiary institutions. What is the current stats on this, out-of-school children, if you have it, and are they doing enough in your view?
Well, I think, no, the exact number, because it keeps changing. I don't have the number of the one, but I know it's a terrible number. And I think it is something staring us in the eyes, generally, the number of out-of-school students. And it's a big shame because, you know, this is 2025. We should be reducing it exponentially. We don't seem to be doing that. The number, we cannot put a hand on it tonight, but I know it's a high number. I believe that if we want to reduce the out-of-school children, we need to look at some non-educational issues like security for starters. Because part of the reason why a lot of people are not going to school is because the school zones are not secure. We need to start with that. The other thing we need to start with is to actually show the benefit of having children in school, not outside of school. I think there is a cultural component that allows that.
Right.
If I had my way, for example, I would make it a criminal offense not to have children in school for a certain age, you know. Say children of 5 to a certain age, maybe 12 or 14, must be in school. And any parent whose children are not in school should be liable to some kind of offense. But to do that, you know, you have to have enough schools. You have to have enough attraction for parents to send their children to school.
That can really
you have
happen.
To know where these parents are.
I mean, you are inferring already that there are conditions. That can only happen when all the basic, or at most, a good percentage of the basics have been put in place in terms of infrastructure and other logistics.
You're very right.
Thank you for speaking with us, Prof.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Coming up, Lagos communities struggle with unhealthy lifestyle amid lack of access to potable water. We have a special report on this after the break. Stay with us. Nigeria's Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, was also among the ministers who presented their ministry scorecard earlier in the day. Today, let's listen to that.
Curbing illegal charter operations last year. They sat for more than 6 months, and we brought some of the best hands in the industry, headed by Captain Ado, who has been with Aero for forever, you know, and a very experienced pilot, 7-member task force. And they just submitted their report last week with eye-boggling revelations. In fact, at a point, they even said we shut down the GAT, that private charter wing, for total reorganization in terms of security, in terms of the kind of machines we used to see the bags apart. Just total, we should shut it down for total, you know, check. Not the commercial part, we cannot do that. But that's one of their suggestions. But we are still looking into it on how to quickly do, you know, implement these recommendations without too much disrupting passenger movement. But then, they said far more than that in terms of the illegalities that go through there. And I will not shy away from saying it. If it is the big men that are involved, the president has given us a free hand to fight this menace. They cannot run to the president. The president will send them back because the president is determined to do what is right. And so in the next few weeks, they have submitted their reports. We are tackling this headlong. In the next few weeks, we are going to be making fast-sweeping reforms.
Access to clean water remains a major challenge for many communities in Lagos, despite being Nigeria's economic hub. Residents in several areas struggle daily to find safe drinking water, resorting to unhealthy practices that put their health at risk. News Center's correspondent Sumaya Abubakar has the details.
This is Agege, one of the many areas in Lagos where access to clean water is a daily struggle. For residents here, getting potable water is not just a challenge, it is a crisis. Many depend on unreliable boreholes, contaminated wells, and in some cases, water vendors who charge exorbitant prices.
It's very hard to get water because from where I'm living, I used to trek down to fetch water. Assuming you are here yesterday, you can see there are many people crowded there. There's scarcity of water, there is no light. Since 3 days or 4 days now, there's no light here. We don't know the issue all about. And it's not being easy waking up in the morning, fetch water to bathe my baby, and one is going to school also. It's very, very stressful.
Za su iya tallafa akan a samu ruwa ko sojoji haka na taimaka ma al'umma. Za su roji na taimaka ma al'umma wadda wahala zai rage ko ba haka ba. Insha Allah. Mu san wannan wahala na ruwa shi rage. Da in ya rage mu ma daɗin mu ne.
Flooding poses a major threat to water quality in Lagos. Sewage systems overflow, contaminating water sources with harmful bacteria and pollutants. This leads to a spike in waterborne diseases, especially in local communities.
People resorting to digging boreholes. This is most rampant in Lagos. I would say that Lagos, and by extension Nigeria, will have one of the most drilled aquifers in the world. And these are serious environmental implications. It has serious geological implications. It even has serious social justice implications, because what it then means is that it is those who are able to afford the cost of sinking boreholes and being able to access power, electricity supply, are the ones who have access to water. And they don't even use it sustainably. They don't use it judiciously. There's no regulation in that regard.
You know, one thing about water is that it depends the way you do it. The depth, the increase in depth make the water that's coming out from the borehole to be pure. So for this area, there are some people, when they do their borehole, it's around 110 feet, 120. But when I do my own, I have to go to 150.
The Lagos state government has launched various water projects, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. Now this is the current situation, and until concrete solutions are implemented, millions of Lagos residents will continue to face this daily struggle, putting their health and well-being at risk. These questions remain, so how long will they have to wait? In Lagos, for News Central, Sumaya Abubakar.
I'm now joined by my colleague, Sumaya Abubakar, to talk about her experience in the course of putting this report together. Hello, Sumaya. I mean, were you surprised? This is Lagos, Agege for that matter. Were you surprised to find that there is a community still lacking clean water in Lagos, and how widespread is it?
I mean, it's not really surprising. This is a problem, truly, Felicity, that we've known for the longest time. It has been a challenge for Lagos. The first thing you hear about Lagos is the lack of water, lack of access to clean water from highbrow areas like Lekki to even the lowbrow areas. Now, I did not just sample Agege, I also sampled Oba, and walking through the street of these communities just brought this intense feelings to the heart, to my heart, that the Lagos State's government, not just Lagos State, but in general, Nigeria is lacking. Because we know that way back, there was a time where we grew up having access to clean tap water. But now the situation is different. I spoke to a lot of residents. We know we cannot couple all their opinions in just 2 minutes of report, but their hearts are heavy and they are struggling, at a double level, paying much more than they could have paid the government for, the necessary basic water, if the government is to offer them that.
Your report did suggest, or rather mentioned clearly, that the government has launched several water projects. The reality on the ground, though, seems different. What were residents saying to you about these government efforts and how it's reaching them?
I mean, we've seen efforts of the government, from major waterworks to mini waterworks and boreholes projects, and even some initiatives from the government. That's an effort. But when we talk about impact, it's not just a short-time situation, a short-time solution. We need something that people would say, we have, the Lagos State government started this now, and we're still enjoying it for the longest time. So with all of this project, based on my conversation with experts, they made mention that while the government are making some efforts, there's still an underlying issue. One of it is the Lagos State unplanned, buildings, and when you try to tell the residents, okay, perhaps we should move from this place to the other place, they don't even trust the government. And you wouldn't blame the people for their lack of trust in the government. But when the government are making efforts and there are still underlying issues that have not been resolved, then it's just a case of us going back and forth and round the cycle. I think that's the major issue there.
Sumaya, thank you for bringing us update on that report. Just really unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicity.
I do look forward to a time where we'll no longer talk about clean, potable water and access. Moving on now, the House of Representatives has retained Nigeria's value-added tax, VAT, at 7.5%, rejecting a proposed staggered increase to 15% by 2030. The House also rejected the reintroduction of inheritance tax, which it says is being disguised as taxation on family income. Our National Assembly correspondent brings us details.
After a week-long retreat, the House Ad Hoc Committee on Tax Reform Bills presented its report, forming the major business of the day's proceedings. The committee chairman, James Faleke, moved for the consideration of the report, providing a summary of key recommendations. For VAT revenue distribution, the House adopted a structure where 50% will be shared equally among states, 20% distributed based on population, and 30% allocated according to consumption patterns, ensuring revenue is tied to the point of actual consumption rather than where tax returns are filed. The House also approved tax exemption on the personal income of military personnel in Nigeria.
50% will be distributed equally, 20% will be distributed based on population, 30% will be distributed based on consumption. Emphasis has also been placed on the actual place of consumption, irrespective of where the returns are filed.
In addition, the House agreed to retain VAT at 7.5%, rejecting plans for any phased increase. Lawmakers commended the committee's work, stressing the need for tax reforms that prioritize citizens' welfare.
Reduction of VAT rate to 5% or alternatively maintain the current rate of 7.5%.
Honorable Chinda, please can you approach the chair?
The committee adopted the 7.5%. Recommendations for the reinstatement of contributions towards NASENI, NIDA, and a call to ensure continuous funding from the development levy. This, of course, was retained without sunset clauses.
The House further approved the appointment of one representative from each of Nigeria's 36 states to the board of the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill. On his part, Speaker Abbas Tajuddin praised the committee's efforts, highlighting the absence of dissent among lawmakers during the review process.
So I believe that what we have, honorable colleagues here, for those who are not members of this particular ad hoc committee, is the handwork of not a few, but of all. 36 members plus the regional and zonal caucus leaders. 100% consent and assent of all of them.
As Nigerians await the passage of the bills and presidential assent, many are hopeful that the proposed reforms will improve economic growth and enhance citizens' welfare.
Frank Aigbogu is the publisher of Business Day newspaper. He joins me now to expand the discussion on the new tax regime. Good to have you on the news. Talk to us about the reasoning behind the House of Representatives' decision to reject the proposed VAT increase and approve the tax reform bills.
Thank you. The committee didn't quite provide rationale for the decision to retain VAT at 7.5%. But I think when you talk to business people, what you hear is that the reforms of the government, starting from the petrol price reform in May of 2023, these reforms have brought significant pressure on individuals, reducing purchasing power, and even on businesses with rising inventory. So from the perspective of business leaders, I think it makes sense to allow VAT remain at 7.5% for a while, as individuals, Nigerians, and the businesses that they own transit from the pain of reform to recovery. That should be, in my view, a sacrifice that the government makes to help promote recovery, economic recovery in the country, and of course, a recovery of households' income in Nigeria. So I think retaining VAT at 7.5% at this time makes a lot of sense.
Well, we understand the House of Representatives incorporated feedback from stakeholders during its public hearing. Can you talk to us about some of the key concerns stakeholders raised that they paid attention to?
Well, I made the point already about the pressure that Nigerians at home and businesses are already facing. I mean, if you look at it, reforms should not just be about taxing the people. Reform should also be creating tools and incentives that help Nigerians and their businesses to prosper. It will be good for government to tax prosperity of Nigerians and prosperity of businesses. As has been said, doesn't make sense taxing poverty. I think that's a major plank for those who canvass the retention of VAT at the current rate of 7.5%. But there is also the point to be made that in looking at the whole effort at reforming taxation in Nigeria, that the government focuses on the big wins, those critical things that it wants to achieve, and does not allow fighting small fires, then lead to distraction from attaining the major goals, or if you like, the low-hanging fruits. But there will be, I believe, questions around other aspects of the House of Representatives Committee recommendations on the tax bill that is finding its way through the National Assembly.
The revised tax reform bills include changes to the sharing formula, that's the VAT sharing formula, allocating 30% based on consumption rather than company headquarters. How do you think this change will impact revenue allocation across different regions in Nigeria?
I think there are two aspects to that. Firstly is to look at the idea of dedicating only 30% to, if you like, derivation. I think the House Committee is just being smart by talking about consumption. That, when it comes to consumption, was never calculated on the basis of headquarters of government. It's on the basis of tax revenues from a particular region, from a particular state. So the real issue for me is about 30%. I think in proposing 30% for derivation or for consumption or at the place of consumption, the House of Representative Committee has, in my view, made a very serious blunder. We are at a point where we should be rewarding productivity. And in this particular case, productivity for me is where the revenue is generated. My preference would be to dedicate at least 50%, to consumption or to derivation, whichever one you call it. And then 30% to equality. I think it is wrong for the committee to suggest that whether or not you contribute VAT revenues, you would share from the 50%. Doesn't make sense to me. It's part of why the economy is where it is. We reward the wrong people.
All right.
We subsidize the wrong things. So how do you encourage states to increase VAT revenue generation in their states if all they get is 30%?
All right, let's take one more question before we let you go. The committee deleted the clause on the proposed introduction of inheritance tax, I beg your pardon, and made recommendations for operators of free trade zones. What do you think informed this?
Well, Nigeria is still a very traditional society. We are still steep in our culture. Inheritance is almost something that is sacred in Nigeria, in many communities, or most communities in Nigeria. There is still that very significant pushback when government begins to interfere with what a father, a mother, or a parent has passed on to his or her children or to other people. I don't think Nigeria is ready to entertain significant intrusion of government into derivation. It makes a lot of sense. If you then inherit something and you decide to invest it, then it makes sense to charge the profit that you make. But it doesn't make sense to many people that at this time of development, The government is looking at taxing. I mean, it can't just be tax. There has to be some reasonableness in the way these tax items are introduced.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us. We appreciate your time. Away from Nigeria, and in a twist of events, the Rwanda-backed M23 armed group has welcomed the prospect of direct negotiations with the Congolese government to end the conflict in the country. Since its 2021 resurgence, the M23 has been fighting the Congolese army there, seizing swathes of the DRC's mineral-rich territory in a region plagued by decades of violence. In recent months, its rapid advance has sparked fears of a wider war, drawing in regional powers, while the deaths of peacemakers from southern Africa prompted a regional bloc to decide to pull out its mission to the DRC on Thursday. On Tuesday, Angola said it would host talks in a bid to halt the fighting, later giving a date of March 18 for the beginning of negotiations. And to one of our headline stories, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed reservations about a 30-day ceasefire proposal to end the war in Ukraine. He notes that it is not clear how the situation would develop in the region of Kursk and elsewhere if a ceasefire was implemented. Putin describes the U.S. idea as great and correct, noting that Russia supports it in theory, but that several things still need to be discussed before a deal is reached. Business news is next after this. Joanna joins me now for business news. Over to you, Joanne.
That's right. Some adult habits or hobbies are about to become more expensive in the United States, with Trump threatening a 200% tariff on alcohol from Europe. So we'll get into that and much more on Business Tonight.
Business news in association with Money Master PSB, the easy way to master your money.
And the federal government of Nigeria has announced plans to gradually move away from its reliance on borrowing to finance budget deficits, focusing instead on optimizing assets and attracting private investments to drive economic growth. This is according to Finance Minister Wale Edun. Speaking at a high-level session in Abuja, he emphasized the importance of reducing debt dependence and leveraging existing resources more effectively. Edu also highlighted the government's commitment to improving public transparency, reducing waste, and fostering private sector partnerships to ensure sustainable financial management and long-term economic development. And U.S. stock indexes dropped on Thursday following President Donald Trump's threat to impose a 200% tariff on European beverages import, including wine and cognac, unless the EU removes surcharges on U.S. whiskey. The announcement added tensions to global trade relations, causing concerns about stiffer trade barriers. Despite market volatility, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent downplayed recession fears, calling it an economic detox. Meanwhile, oil prices fell as concerns grew that the tariff disputes could harm global demand. And coming to the local bourse, the NGX, of course, we are seeing that break in the 2 days losing streak. Today, the market is up marginally on the exchange. The bourse gained about 82 billion naira. If we can have the snapshots up, the market gained 82 billion naira. That's what we saw today. Returns settled at, year-to-date returns are down 1.5%, and year-to-date returns for the month-till dates are up 3.2%. For the year, I beg your pardon, the other way around. But all share index today is at 106,220.62. Market capitalization, we did gain 82 billion today, so we are seeing 66.52 trillion in market cap, and we are up 12 basis points for today. Coming to sectoral performances, a reversal of what we saw yesterday. Banking is down. All other indexes are up. Banking down 0.50%. Insurance is up as well. Oil and gas, we're seeing some sell-offs in Rwanda, but it's still up marginally 0.05%. Consumer goods is also up thanks to international bureaus, and industrial goods flat. That's it on Business Tonight. I am Joanna Mustafa. Tonight continues with Felicity.
Business News in association with Money Master PSB, the easy way to master your money.
I have Inyechi now for Sports Update.
Thank you so much, Felicity. It's a 30-day ultimatum between defending champion Alexander Usyk and Joseph Parker, who is the mandatory challenger. We're waiting for what will pan out from that ultimatum given by the WBO. I'll tell you shortly more about that.
Sports Update, brought to you by Corn Oil. Corn Oil, we go the extra mile.
And now we're in sport. Heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk has been ordered by the WBO to begin negotiations for mandatory title defense against Joseph Parker. In a notice published on the WBO's website on Thursday morning, negotiations for Usyk-Parker bout were ordered by an email in a respective fighters' promoters by the organization's chairman and founder, Luis Batista Salas. Parker is the WBO interim champion. Usyk and Parker have 30 days to reach an agreement for the ordered mandatory defense. Otherwise, the WBO will order a per-speed progression of proceedings. The move could end British fighter Daniel Dubois' hope of a rematch with the Ukrainian. Moving away from that, Nigeria's Paralympic bronze medalist Eniola Bolaji continued her impressive form at the Bradola Spanish Para-Badminton Tournament, securing a dominant 2-0 victory over India's Sajana Kumari in the women's singles SL3 category on Thursday. Competing in Toledo, Spain, for the second phase of the Spanish Para-Badminton International Elite Competition, Bolaji claimed victory in straight sets 21-15, 21-8. The Nigerian para-badminton star, who recently clinched gold at the 2025 Spanish Para-Badminton International in Victoria, Spain, is reinforcing her status as a top contender. In that event, she stunned Ukrainian's world number 4, Oksana Kazina, to claim the title. With her latest win, Bolaji now tops Group A with the WSSL3 category, edging ahead of Turkey's Halima Yildiz. Akwa Ibom sprinter Victor Ime has set a new personal best of 46 seconds in the men's 400-meter race in Uyo's senatorial trials for the Niger Delta Sport Festival. Now, the event held at the Nest of Champions on Thursday marked a major comeback for Ime, who had previously missed out in representing Nigeria at the 13th African Games after clocking 48 seconds in the 2024 trials. Ime expresses excitement, calling the new record a morale booster. He believes the upcoming Niger Delta Sport Festival will be a stepping stone to greater achievement in his career. Beyond athletics, the trials also witnessed impressive performances from weightlifting, boxing, and table tennis. And that's it in the world of sport. I am Onyinyechi Obaru. Back to Felicity for more on the news.
Adewa is here with the latest in the entertainment world.
Yes.
What's hot?
You know, it seems like the entertainment industry is becoming very serious now because it's from one lawsuit to another. Yeah, all the fun parts is gone.
They have plenty of money.
Well, okay, I'll bring you all the details shortly of what's going on.
Entertainment news in association with Glow Unlimited.
All right, straight to entertainment. Now, an Abuja Chief Magistrate Court issued a bench warrant for the arrest of social media activist Martins, also popularly known as Very Dark Man, following a criminal defamation case filed by gospel singer Mercy Chinwo. Now, the court's decision came after VDM failed to appear in court on March 5th, despite being summoned. Now, Chinwo accused VDM of defamation for alleging she was involved in a financial dispute between, that's over $345,000 linked to her former record label boss. Now, she provided evidence, including emails and payment receipts, to prove her innocence. Now, VDM's actions were said to violate the Penal Code and the Cybercrime Act. Additionally, Chinwo's legal team filed a separate lawsuit that's 1.1 billion naira against VDM, seeking a retraction, an apology, and removal of the defamatory content. Yeah, so now is for VDM to show himself. So Felicity, what do you think? It's
1 billion.
1.1 billion, yes. It's not small money.
1 billion plus.
1 billion plus.
They just throw money.
Yeah.
Where is VDM going to find the money to pay
Well,
if he's convicted?
They say if you have such a big mouth, you should have big money to back it as well.
Oh, well,
so
you have a point there.
Yeah, well, so let's see how that goes. Now, let's talk about some other lawsuits happening. Now, a woman who previously filed a lawsuit against Jay-Z and Sean Combs of sexual assault when she was 13 was recorded agreeing with private investigators that Jay-Z did not assault her. In a recording, the Jane Doe also claimed her lawyer, Tony Busby, pushed her to pursue the lawsuit. Busby denied these claims, calling the recording a manipulation and out of context. Now, court filings also revealed the woman's history of mental health issues, including auditory hallucinations. Now, she has acknowledged inconsistencies in her stories, including misidentifying individuals involved in the incident. Now, in response, Jay-Z has filed defamation lawsuits against her and her lawyer, Tony Busby. Well, that's all we have on entertainment, the serious part.
Entertainment news in association with Glow Unlimited.
And that's the news tonight. Remember to send your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on all social media platforms. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you for your kind company. Have a good night.